All right. So for this part, we're going to talk about a worldwide depression, or essentially how economic circumstances in Germany, on top of basically the Great Depression that happens in the United States, is going to destroy the world economy or put it so far behind that everyone's kind of playing catch up in this interwar period. So if we're looking at these charts, look at the one on the left side here. You can see that comparing Great Britain, Germany, and the United States unemployment rates, you're going to have Germany spike, but at the same time, the United States and Great Britain are both going to have a spike in unemployment. The number of or the amount of trading that's going on is going to fall through the floor. If people are unemployed, business is not working. If business is not working, people are not trading. So basically, the economies of a lot of Europe, of the United States, of basically every country is going to decrease. It's going to kind of tank during this time period. And it isn't until the mid 30s where countries start to kind of catch up. They start to bounce back, especially in the case of Germany. You're going to have a different kind of leadership coming up that is putting people to work. Now it's the government putting them to work, so the unemployment is going to match from the amount of government spending that is going on, but we'll kind of get to that point. Now, to shorten this, essentially, when we talk about what's happening and how it is that one economy failing can make another economy or multiple economies fail, is talking about the kind of the fixing or the way that the United States is going to help Germany specifically after the war. So Germany had, because of the Treaty of Versailles, had taken on all of the debt, or was forced to take on all of the debt from World War I, which was absolutely tanking Germany. The United States afterwards had decided that they were going to help them and kind of help them pay off loans, or give them loans to pay them, pay the World War I debts off, which was kind of softening the impact of World War I in Germany, right? Some of the reparations that they had to pay. The problem was, in the 20s, the Great Depression is going to happen, and the U.S. economy is going to absolutely tank. So when the U.S. was the one giving out all the loans to France, to Great Britain, to Germany, when we were the ones that were giving, we were essentially kind of this bank in a way, right? We're helping people, we're softening the impact of World War I. Well, once that fails, everybody else is going to fail too. And when you're solely focused on this singular source of income, if that gets cut off, all the trade, all of the businesses, every aspect that's connected to this reparation or this repayment for the debt is going to crumble around it. So the U.S. fails, right? The U.S. economy fails. Everybody else that's connected in some way is going to fail as well, and it's kind of a domino effect. U.S. goes, Germany, Great Britain go. Everyone else is going to go around them. So let's talk about the Germany for a second. So Germany, following World War I, the leadership is going to abdicate, and there's going to be this establishment of the Weimar Republic. So the Weimar Republic is by name. It is an actual republic. It is the first time that Germany had ever had a true democracy or a true republic where they had say in the government. Before, they had military generals and kings and things like that. This is the first time when the people are able to vote. In fact, in Germany, the people had they had the lowest age of entry for men and women. I believe it was 21 years old for both of them to vote. No other country in Europe had those kind of rights. Now, Germany was forced, after the U.S. failed, after the economy had failed, they were forced to deal with the debt. And the only way that they were going to be able to pay for it is if they started to produce more money. Well, when you increase the money supply in a country, that's going to depreciate the value, right? If we have to pay off $1 million debt in the United States and we decide to produce $2 million or $2 billion extra, well, that means that every single one of those dollars is worth less than all of the money from before. And that's the problem in the Weimar Republic. They started to just print as much money as they could, to the point where people were using money for toys, They were using it to like line their houses for insulation. They talk about the cost of bread going from 500 Deutschmarks to 5 million Deutschmarks for a loaf of bread, right? That's the kind of hyperinflation that they were dealing with. Now, the Dawes plan was the US's plan to kind of give money to lend it out to help them kind of tie them over. But again, once that fails, the entire system is going to fall through, right? The Weimar Republic is essentially going to put itself into such a point of hyperinflation that there's really no way to recover from it. And that's going to put stress on the people. And realistically, when economies start to fail, that's what's going to lead to extremism. That's what's going to lead to bigger social programs and more nationalistic ideas being promoted, right? People in dire straits are going to favor more extreme ideas, whatever, to help them. So let's talk about the U.S. specifically. We're seeing new technologies come up, which is going to increase the amount of spending that's going to happen in the United States. People aren't using the brushes and brooms anymore. They get vacuum cleaners, right? They're not sewing things by hand. They're using electric sewing machines. That consumer culture, the new technology for convenience, comes at a cost. Well, with increased costs means that people are going to be more encouraged to do things through like payments, right? Payment plans and things like that, or taking loans out for certain things. And when you're taking on that kind of debt, there is a risk, right? Every piece of debt that you take on comes with some kind of innate risk. If you don't pay it, that thing will be taken from you. Well, now imagine an entire economy that's set up based on payment plans and taking on massive amounts of debt, betting on futures and betting on stocks and stuff like that with loans, right? You're setting up a house of cards that's just waiting for a gust of wind to knock it over. Now, when we talk about the prosperity, everybody was purchasing more, right? Everybody was purchasing to help them produce more. Everybody is investing in equipment and technology, and it is booming, right? The growth in the economy is explosive, which is all well and good. But again, if you have, if you're setting your economy up in such a dangerous way without any safeguards on it, you're setting yourself up for failure. You're going to have the idea of kind of this good credit, bad credit. You're going to have people investing, and there's this kind of common culture that's going to come about where people are encouraged to buy what they can't or don't have, right? Oh, do you have an automobile? No, I can't afford it. Well, all you have to do is take out a loan and you can have it. All you have to do is, take out a mortgage, things like that. If you just go on an installment plan, you can pay for it. Well, if you have an installment plan on your car, on your washing machine, if you have the mortgage for your house, if you have all of these different things that are stacking up, suddenly you don't just have a $150 washing machine you have to pay for. You have something like thousands and thousands of dollars of debt that you're going to have to pay for. And the thing with installment plans that people don't realize is the interest on it, right? You either pay, in today's example, right, you can pay $36,000 for a car, or you do an installment plan, and by the time you finish paying for it, you've paid something like $50,000 for the car, right? Based off of the insurance, or based off of the accrued cost of not owning it, off of the interest from it, everything like that. So in most cases, or in a lot of cases, if you just save up, the cost is finite, right? It's $36,000 to start with. The longer you extend it, the more installments you have to do to pay it off. That's going to increase the total cost, when in reality you could have saved up a little bit longer. But in this time period, it was encouraged to use these installment plans to gain or to garner all of this debt. It was seen as like favorable because you got what you wanted. This was a time of lavish living. Now, again, what happens? The Great Depression is going to occur. The stock market, Black Tuesday. Everything is going to fail. People are going to be kicked out of their jobs. People are waiting in lines to get bread. A third of the U.S. population is unemployed. Somewhat similar to what we're doing today. Now, the causes: failure of profit in key industries. We're going to have problems with farmers. There's going to be foreclosures on some of their farmland. Again, if they're taking out loans to own this farmland, they have a couple of bad seasons. And when you talk about the Dust Bowl in the center of the country, that's going to kill a lot of crops. That's going to make people lose their farm. Well, if they lose their farm, they have no way of making an income. If you have no income, you don't eat, right? That's kind of the way that it goes. There's more production than there are consumers, especially when you're talking about once the Great Depression hits, we're producing goods still, and people can't afford it because they have no jobs. A lot of buying on credit, over speculation on the stock market, or buying on margin, essentially taking out loans to bet that or to invest in a stock that is supposed to increase in value so that you can sell it off, right? If you're taking a loan to make a bet, that's a bad call, right? But it was kind of this common culture to be risky in the way that you invest, right? And if that's the common culture, everyone's going to take part, even if it is a bad financial decision. Black Tuesday, when the stock market is fully going to crash, eventually there's going to be this run on the banks, right? When people feel like their money isn't secured, when people are scared that their money is essentially going to lose value, or that they are, the banks are going to close and their money's going to be locked away, that scares people. So when there is this huge sell-off in stocks, in the stock market, this crash that's going to happen, millions of dollars are being lost, and all of these banks are going to lose value and have all of their money taken from them. Now, one of the things that people don't understand is that banks don't actually hold your money, right? All of the money, you put $1,000 into a bank, they are not holding that $1,000 for you to come back. They are giving that to somebody else as part of a loan. They are investing that in different aspects. It's all about kind of accruing more money in the long run. So when everybody is running to these banks and saying, "Hey, I want my $1,000. I want my $1,000," the bank doesn't have it, right? So a lot of people, they took all of the money out of the bank, and that was it. So some people lost all of their finances in a single day because they weren't fast enough to go to the bank, or because the bank had been giving out their money as loans and didn't have enough on hold. All of these things. When the institutions start to collapse, when banks start to collapse, there's no loans for businesses. There's, all of the financial institutions are failing, which is going to lead to mass unemployment. We have 4 million people unemployed by 1930, and 2 years later, it's up to 12 million. These are massive numbers and are going to have a very there's a ripple effect in what happens to our culture because of the Great Depression. So other countries are going to try to meet this crisis in different ways. You're going to have the British kind of trying to cling more towards democracy and this national government in an attempt to stop any extremists from popping up. Typically, and again, in history, whenever you see some country in economic turmoil, extremism pops up because they promise so many big things, and it's something that people can rally around. So Great Britain is going to cling to their national government. France is going to kind of try to create these coalition governments in a parliamentary system. It's essentially saying that basically both sides of the political spectrum are working together, right? So if you were to apply this to the United States, that would be like the Republicans and Democrats create a new government together, right? That they're combined. But like with anything, it's hard to create a unitary government with two different ideologies. So these coalition governments form and fall, right? They're not able to hold it together. So there's a lot of political turmoil in France. Now, Denmark, Sweden, Norway, they're going to go about a different route. They're going to favor a more Keynesian approach to the economy, where when they see the economy failing, they decide that they're going to try to reinvigorate it with a massive amount of government spending, government jobs, essentially saying if the private sector can't keep the economy running because of this Great Depression that's happening, then the governments will take over. Pensions for the elderly, taxing the working people more. This is where you see when people refer to like democratic socialism, they really point back to this time period, because this is a time when the governments are creating big social programs. They're taking away, they're basically almost going towards like this command economy in their states. Now, this doesn't last for long. In fact, you'll see that outside of World War, when we get to the 60s and 70s, they're transitioning back into a much more capitalistic view. But socialism or the socialist governments instilled in these Nordic countries are going to hold power for quite a bit of time. But in a lot of cases, with the government spending, and we'll see this even in the United States, it's a temporary fix, right? The idea of this massive amount of government spending is going to give people this kind of stability. It's going to make them feel better and give them the confidence to invest, which is going to rebuild the economy, right? That's really what it is. The spending itself isn't the end. Now, in the United States, you're going to have President FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. He's going to come and he is going to look for this more aggressive kind of economic recovery. He is going to apply the New Deal. He's going to increase all of these government programs to get people back to work, right? You'll have the TVA and things like that, where essentially it's the government spending the money to build things, because the government in reality can make money, right? If they can just produce more money, or they can just repurpose money, give loans out for the money, take on debt, they can create money for the economy to circulate. Well, if they're forcing circulation of money, that's going to get the economy started in theory. It's going to get people back to work. It's going to get people spending money on goods and services, which is supposed to kind of restart the economy in a time when people weren't working. So we're going to see how basically this recovery is going to try to slowly bring back the United States from this Great Depression.